how are you doing, everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're going to be talking about that hip action again. We're going to be talking about that sort of squaring movement into the initiation, into the downswing. It's a very, very important area. And I'm just going to basically have a little bit of a chat about it in terms of some exercises that you can potentially do at home just to increase that sort of sense of feel as to what basically needs to be happening. Let's go and get stuck in. The squaring movement in the golf swing position. If I use the green cane to roughly resemble the direction where I'm swinging, place the other one through my belt loops. By the time we get to lead arm horizontal, we need the pelvis back to square to target. Now, the reason for this and the reason why we see it in essence is because it's the rotational movement that kind of, should we say, moves the shoulder and the arm in space. So that's going to be much quicker than just kind of pulling your arm in this sort of fashion, is really turning in towards the arm. So that's the reason why we see this as a commonality across professional golfers. If I swing up towards the top, like I said, it's this sort of squaring action here. Now, what we've been saying recently is that, well, obviously we've been saying a couple of things. One, that you've got to get deep enough in the backswing position, because if you don't get deep enough and I only rotate here in the backswing and then I start to square my hips, my right hip's going to come forward. So we need to pressure that right leg to pivot around it, or you need to make sure that you're getting it deep enough so that as you transition, it doesn't blockade your pathway coming down. So just as another visual, if I hold this underneath the target, underneath the club, what we're basically saying is that by the time we get to left arm horizontal, this shaft either needs to be pointing shallow or down towards our target line. And if you're somebody who spins out, you're going to end up moving this way, or your elbow's going to get stuck to facilitate your ability to stay on plane. So those are the kind of common problems that we tend to see in the golf swing. So when we're talking about this squaring action, load and then almost get the feeling that you're using the right leg, so the weight momentarily stays on the right leg whilst you go back to square. Now, like I said, whether this is linear as well, meaning if I'm moving left, the weight is still on my right as I'm moving back towards the left hand side. If you swung up to the top and immediately shifted left with the weight on the left, you're just going to get massively stuck. So it's the same from this sort of perspective. What we're in essence saying is that if we just keep a target line and then also something to resemble, so we say roughly the low point of the golf swing, which is the other one perpendicular to it, saying is that in the backswing position, some golfers might choose to stay very central, which means that your pivoting action will only have to be quite centralized. Some golfers, and typically more professionals, will shift more right, which is why they have to re-center coming in towards the transition. So although in this sort of movement that I'm demonstrating here, it's linear in terms of I'm moving laterally, I'm not shifting the weight entirely left. Because as soon as you shift weight on the left, you're never going to be able to create the clearance which is necessary. So it's kind of like you're going to swing back, weight on the right hand side. Even if you're moving right, the weight still is on the right, but not entirely on the right. Like I'm just saying that you've still got enough pressure on the right, because otherwise you try and get this leg square, if you put weight on it, it just isn't going to move. So this sort of squaring action generally leads back to the idea of getting enough weight on towards the trail side in the backswing position. And then the idea is to feel like you're moving the outer part of your leg to move back to square to target, or at least getting the feeling that you're pivoting more around the right leg coming in towards the transition. Everybody will look slightly different. We see differences on the tour. We see some differences where golfers pivot much more this way in the backswing, so then transition they look this way. Some golfers look more this way and then they pivot this way. But what I'm trying to say is that if you swing back and then immediately shift onto the left, you're inevitably going to get stuck. And if you inevitably get stuck, then you're never going to get the hip square, which essentially means if you go back and left, whilst if it's progressive, then you can start to pivot in and around it. So it's a very subtle area of the transition. We're going to keep talking about that lower impact position as well. Let's come back to it in more detail. There we go then. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Always appreciate one of those. Remember, it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to do so, press the bell icon. Remember, it's free to send swings into the Instagram page as well. Keep practicing. Catch up with you soon.